This is the Scribehound Gardening podcast, and my name is James Alexander-Sinclair, and sitting just across the table from me is...
Why do you always say it like that, like you've forgotten who I am? I don't get it, because you know who I am. You're introducing yourself. Why don't you just introduce me with it?
Okay, I can do it that way.
Well, go on then.
Over there, Joe Swift.
Thank you very much.
There you are.
Good evening.
Good evening, morning, good afternoon, good evening. Are you well?
I'm really well, actually. Yeah, I've had a little break.
That's
so
nice.
a little break, and I'm well, and I'm now nearly as old as you. I'm another year older now.
Oh, God, you are. Well, you're going to catch up soon, because I'm
I'm
going to start
catching
going
up.
backwards when you get to a certain point. If you enjoy Joe and I drivelling on like this, then hit the subscribe button. Go to wherever you get your podcasts and write us a nice review. What else do we want them to do? I think that's probably it, isn't it?
Well, subscribe to Scribehound in general, because, of course, there's 30 writers who write and read out their article every day, and that's where you get some proper information. That's where you get all your real gardening from. You're not going to get it here.
That's where you get stuff from Sarah Raven and Alan Titchmarsh and Ben Dark and Mark Giacono and Jane Perrone.
You're going to name all 30 of them. We're going to be here for the whole podcast.
There's only a few of them that get a name check at the moment. Okay, so that's it. That's Scribehound Gardening. Go and subscribe to that. There's details in the show notes. Send us questions. I think that's all the admin, isn't it?
Can I say the naming of the gnome feels a little... We've gone a bit popularist. Is this a bit popularist? Is this what...
What, having name naming?
Is this what Donald Trump would do to get
more?
more...
Somebody will get a name and we'll do it.
Get more subscribers. Oh, what about the cat? The BBC... what was it? The Blue Peter cat. Do you remember? It was a stitch-up. It was a fix. They called it Socks because the producer wanted to call it Socks. And for years after, there was no competitions at the BBC. Do you remember? Couldn't even have People's Choice Award at the RHS. We weren't allowed to have questions and stuff at Chelsea and the flower shows and stuff. We weren't allowed to throw stuff out there for years because of the cat.
The Blue Peter cat. And
Yeah.
it was a fixed ballot, wasn't it? It was a fixed vote.
It was fixed, but the producer chose it and they called it Socks.
What did the public want to call it?
I don't know.
Catty McPussface. Gardening can sometimes be bewildering, which is why I am so pleased that we have snuggled up with our friends at Crocus for this podcast series. As you probably know, Crocus is the most trusted online gardening brand. Their website is stuffed full of advice, inspiration, and of course, plants and products to help bring your dream garden to life. Check out Crocus's website to find out more. If you find something that you just cannot resist, use the code SCRIBEHOUND20 at the checkout to enjoy 20% off all full-price plants until October the 31st, which is, of course, Halloween. Have you been abroad recently?
Yes.
Where did you go?
I didn't go anywhere garden related, if that's what your question is.
That's where I was heading
But I went somewhere with lots of really good food.
Okay. But
I mean, there were plants around me and all that.
There was no gardens that you went to visit?
There was a botanical garden, but we actually didn't go there because we were so exhausted and full of pasta that on the last day, and we were running around trying to fit in a few sort of cultural visits.
Yeah.
But actually, the botanical garden, which usually is first on my list, I've got to say, a garden. I love visiting gardens.
Yep.
We didn't get there.
I haven't been anywhere recently, and I can't remember the last garden I went. Oh, I went to see a garden. Actually, when I say I can't remember, it was yesterday. because you know the whole country is awash with NGS gardens opening for the National Garden Scheme, and I went to see one of them, and it was quite extraordinary. Actually, it was quite close to where I live, and it was open for
You've got to be nice about it,
2
Jimmy.
days. I had a very nice slice of orange cake, which is what most of it is about. There was a plant stall. It was actually a really nice garden that somebody had been doing. She's doing it on her own. She was not in her first flush of youth, and it was a really pretty impressive achievement, actually.
I can tell you've forgotten the name of the garden and the name
have
of the
forgotten
gardener.
Yes, I've
but
done
not.
both.
You haven't forgotten the name of the cake.
I haven't forgotten the garden. The garden still lives in my memory. There were some really lovely bits. There's quite interesting bits of topiary. There was a sort of ruined building. Anyway, really, really nice garden. So yes, I have been to a garden, but not one abroad for a while. Although, like you, I think it's probably, if I'm going somewhere, it's sort of a first stop, isn't it? Take me to a garden, go and do things like that. I've done, because you lived in Australia. Have you done the Sydney Botanical Gardens? We'll start a long way away and come backwards.
I have done them, but yes, I didn't do them when I was out there landscaping, but I have been back to Australia since, and yeah.
I did that one. I think I've done Melbourne. I think I've done Hobart.
Oh, and I did Perth. I've done Perth Botanical Gardens.
Well, that means between us, we've done Australia. We can tick that one
We've done
off.
the Australia Botanical Garden. I
come-
remember that I single-handedly landscaped Ayers Rock. It was just called Uluru because
That's the
it's
one.
not called Ayers Rock anymore. But I did that in a weekend.
I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the whacker plate work on the top. It's fantastic.
It's a bit. I wanted to get at the top. I'm still not happy with the top. I'm going to go back at
Let's
some
go
point.
back again, do it again.
I had an amazing couple of years with Kathy where we travelled a lot. We went to India, Japan, South Africa, New Zealand. I was working for a newspaper and I was taking groups out there.
Oh,
but
okay.
obviously I couldn't pretend that I was an expert on these gardens. So I made sure that there was a head gardener at the garden. And basically the deal was no money exchanged hands. Kath and I would get flown out, say, to Japan, spend 2 or 3 days with the group. And, you know, I would do a chat in the evening and talk to them and be sort of hosting and just, you know, chatting away and having a lovely time. And then off the back of it, Kath and I would get another 10 days to travel around the country. And that was the deal. And it was a great deal. So we did a couple of years where we travelled a lot and saw a lot.
That's a nice gig. I quite like that. Do you think we can get somebody to take the Scribehound Gardening podcast on the road? And we can go to Japan. I've never been to Japan. I'd love to go to Japan.
Japan, as a garden lover, Japan is life-changing. Honestly, the gardens are incredible. Kyoto, you know, every temple has a garden, and they are just magical places. And what was a bit weird was when I got there, Kathy and I get off the plane, and the group had got there the day before, and I...
How many people in the group?
Maybe 30, I guess,
Right, it's quite a lot.
25, 30, you know, and they were all English, so, you know, they knew me a bit from the telly and stuff. And I was introduced as being a Japanese... I said to them, this is how it worked. In the morning, we had breakfast, and I got them all together. I said, look, I've never been to Japan before. I'm not a Japanese gardening expert whatsoever. We're going to go and see the cherry blossom. I'm as excited about this. This is a pilgrimage for me. I'm as excited about this as you are. And one of them went up to Kathy, my wife, and said, that's funny because the person who was arranging the whole thing, a Japanese woman, had told them the day before that I'm an expert on Japan. I'm an expert on Japanese gardens. The year before, I had single-handedly taken a whole group around Japan myself, speaking fluent Japanese. And so it was a little awkward, shall we say, for the morning. So I made sure that everywhere we went, there was a head gardener in place and a translator. And it was great because I was asking the gardening questions, and everyone had this earpiece, and then it was translated. So it was like watching a live version of, you know, a garden tour that you might see on the telly or something, but you were in there smelling it, doing it, but having all this chat behind, these pertinent questions behind, hopefully, I think. And honestly, it's life-changing as a garden designer. You must go, James, you must.
I'd like to. Let's do there. I mean, that whole bit, I haven't done Korea. I've done China.
Okay.
I've been to China I've been to China to go and judge a show, and I went to China to do some lecturing. But I saw some gardens, but I think the problem that I thought from a lot of, so the Chinese have been gardening for thousands of years. You know, when they were making very sophisticated gardens in China, we were basically wandering around bonking each other on the head with clubs. And all that kind of stuff.
I thought you were just going to say bonking each other there, leaving it there.
But I think then during the Cultural Revolution, a lot of it was sort of repurposed, or the importance of gardening was changed, the importance of decorative gardening changed, because, you know, if you're starving, then you're going to dig out your rhododendrons and plant cabbages wherever you can. So they were sort of slightly faded and hadn't really come back again yet. So I went to look at a couple of gardens, but mostly the most exciting thing was pandas.
Oh,
I went to see pandas.
wow.
I mean, because they've got this
In the
place-
wild?
No, they were sort of in captivity, but they got more pandas than any. But I made a big mistake, and this can be a warning to everybody
Is that
out there. and to
PC
you.
or not? Is that PC?
Yeah, I think it's fine because they're preserving them and they're trying to sort of get a breeding program
Okay.
so that they're making more pandas and then putting them back in the wild and all of that sort of
You didn't talk to them,
rewilding
did you?
pandas. No, my problem is I'm
more worried about the pandas than you.
the
I'll be honest
pandas are
with you.
fine. The
Okay.
pandas are okay. No pandas are harmed in the making of this podcast, I promise you. But I said I would like to go and see the pandas. We were in this place in Chekwan where there was a big panda centre. And they said, yeah, fine, no problem, we're going to see the pandas. We went to see the pandas. And I made the mistake of going to see the pandas after lunch.
After your lunch or their lunch?
After their lunch.
Okay.
Okay. And pandas, they have a decent lunch. They have some bamboo shoots and then
Yeah.
maybe follow up with a little bamboo shoot and then possibly a bamboo shoot to finish
Do
it
you
off.
think they have a little amuse-bouche, little bamboo shoot, amuse-bouche?
A moose shoot.
A moose shoot.
They have those two. But then after their lunch, as one would naturally, every panda was asleep.
A little lie down.
They were all fast asleep, but they were asleep sort of, there was one panda in a tree with its bum hanging out the edge of the branch, fast asleep.
Well, what's the
And there
problem
were
with
little
that?
baby ones.
You
they were
wanted them
fast-
all running around.
I wanted
and-
them to be doing panda things,
Yeah.
to be going around, because they had these sort of gardens, which why we're talking about gardens.
Of
they
course,
had
I'll
these
bring it back
enclosures,
to gardening.
planted enclosures. And I wanted to see pandas, frolicking and climbing trees and doing what pandas do. But actually, it turns out that what pandas do most of the time is sleep.
Okay.
I mean, they're quite sweet looking at. But anyway, that was
So the moral of the story is don't go and see a panda after lunch.
correct. Always going to see a panda either when they've woken up, sort of around tea time.
Yeah.
Possibly before they have their dinner, because then they're going to sleep again, or maybe just after breakfast.
Yeah,
they're
that's
feeling
it.
a bit more sprightly
Yeah.
and doing more pandery things.
I
So
think
that
people
was,
are learning a lot out of this podcast this week, aren't they?
They're a lot about
They're
gardens,
really
they're
learning
really,
a lot
really-
about panda visiting.
they're learning about places to go to see gardens.
Yeah.
So I've seen. I saw a bit of a garden there, but then. Where else have I been to look at gardens? I mean, Europe, France has got a French garden. We went to a garden in France.
We did. That's up the road
Together.
from
What's
my
that
place.
one called? Because that was a really nice garden. It had sort of fountains that jumped around the place and things. And we wandered up there. And
Sardi. It's called the
Sardi.
Jardin de Sardi, Sardy. And there's also an incredible garden called Marquessac up
which is hedges, isn't
up
it?
the old Dordogne.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Well, it was all completely overgrown, and they literally chainsawed all this box and home oak and stuff. They cut it to the ground and then started. The guy just said, "Go for it with the gardeners. Do what you want," and they ended up really creating this incredible topiary garden. And box blight hadn't got to it the last time I visited, and I hope it doesn't because it would completely ruin it.
I haven't been there, but I've seen lots of pictures of it. I mean, it's people sort of abseiling while clipping box trees
Yeah.
and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah,
it's a really, really
it's
extraordinary
stunning.
thing.
And when I was there, a hot air balloon rose out of the valley and came over our heads. It was just absolutely magical.
It's not as good as a panda, but it's close to it, really.
Yeah, but it
isn't
wasn't asleep.
That's true.
But it was after lunch.
It was. Hot air balloon's fine after lunch. So
But I think gardening and travel and tourism, and I think it is a marriage made in heaven because it gives you a purpose for your travel. It gives you destination points. You really see it's not always going to be the local flora and fauna, but obviously you see what grows there and what does well. But you see people's creation. You know what I don't like? I don't like traveling half the way around the world and seeing what someone calls an English garden. It's like, why? Australia, go to Australia or New Zealand. We went to New Zealand a few years ago. And then you've got this classically, what is a formal English garden. It's not a cottagey style. For me, nah. It's like having a Japanese garden in the middle of Dorset. It's that cultural appropriate. Is it cultural? Is it politically incorrect these days to do something like that?
I think it's a demonstration. I think the fact that you and I have seen enough English gardens, we don't want to travel to see an English garden. There are some people who maybe have never seen an English garden before, and it's easier for them to get to Australia or Timbuktu or wherever it is.
That's not
rather
why
than
they're
coming
doing
here.
it. It's the garden maker. is making this garden for themselves. They're not doing it to attract tourists from Timbuktu. They're doing it for themselves because that is their vision of the perfect garden. They've always wanted an English garden,
and it struggles when it's not in an English climate, which is what the problem I have with Japanese gardens. In that, so there are various Japanese gardens in this country.
Yep.
Tatton Park got
a very good one.
It's a very good one.
Yeah.
And there's one in Holland Park in London as well. But the best one I ever saw was a private one. And it was in this sort of courtyard in London. It was quite small, but it was very, very restrained.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it was completely isolated from England. You couldn't see, British trees or anything like that.
It had no association to isolation surrounding it.
So it was this
That's when it's going to work best.
Big Acer that came across, gravel underneath it, and it actually worked in isolation for all of the sort of English gardening that was going on around it. So it's a difficult thing to do. And the same, if you put an English style garden in a really hot country, if you put it in Australia,
It's ridiculous.
it looks weird.
They've got to water the grass all the time and try and grow roses and try and grow delphiniums that don't want to grow there, and they're watering them and feed. It's completely unsustainable, and frankly, it just looks ridiculous.
Unless again it's in isolation, because I saw one in Australia. I mean, it was an Australian garden, but it had a lot of what you would consider to be English garden plants in it, and it was green because they were sitting basically on this borehole, and there was springs coming up, so the water was there. But I went to see it. It's called Red something. We're really good at telling people exactly where they're going, don't we? On this podcast.
No, I like it. It's cryptic, so they've got to work it out for themselves.
It was about 2.5 hours from Sydney, and I drove there through the fires. So there was smoke everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, not actually fires, because I don't think I would have got there. But there was smoke, and there was this haze that went over, and then you appeared in this garden, you walked through, and there was obviously a lot of trees around it, which gave it shade, because that's what you sort of need. And then underneath that, there was, like a sort of Monet bridge over this rather beautiful pond, and roses and all those sort of things. And it was isolated from the rest of Australia. You sort of come around the corner, and suddenly there's a view off to this brown, drought-ridden grassland that went over that way, and a few sheep and all that kind of stuff. And suddenly you think, hang on, I am actually in Australia, because it's possible to forget where you are sometimes in those situations.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about that?
We could be talking about garden tourism.
Yeah.
Also, as well as the plant, the local flora, what will thrive, and then the establishment of a garden, and what you're trying to work with, whether you're trying to fit into the landscape or whatever. I think the garden, travelling for gardens, you also feel like you're getting to know the culture better.
Yeah.
Going back to Japan, Rionji is this gravel garden that it actually made me cry, which is quite a rare thing these days. But it's 500 years old, this gravel garden. It's 500 years old, and it's gravel and some rocks, and it is a garden of meditation. And if you stuck that in the middle of Holland Park or recreation of it, it just wouldn't have done. It's not do. But it's me having seen this garden and seen photos of it, and then you're there, and obviously if it had been the thing is, if it had been plants and trees and shrubs and perennials and grass, whatever, it wouldn't be the same. 500 years, it would have changed so much, and edited and replanted and pruned and everything. But being rocks and gravel, it's the same rocks and it's the same gravel that has been there for 500 years. And there is something, it's absolute perfection. You move a rock or you move a bit, it's just not going to work. Honestly, I just was, I was overwhelmed by the thought that someone had actually crafted that. There's a lot of debate about who actually made it, and that they had actually creatively arranged everything in that garden. And yes, it is a garden, even though the only plant there is moss, a bit of moss here and there. Like a bit of moss. Okay. And I wouldn't have got that from most gardens in the world, I guess. So that that just will forever stick in my mind, that memory.
I think that's really nice. But the other thing about it is that quite often when you see something as iconic as that garden,
Yes.
the reality disappoints.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's nice
true.
to know that it doesn't. Sometimes you
Yeah.
think, oh, God, this is extraordinary. But actually, what it is it's an extraordinary photograph taken by a very good photographer.
Yeah.
And the reality slightly just disappoints.
But when you're relying on plants and flowers and everything, a lot of people say, oh, you should have come here last week.
Yeah, they always say
Oh,
that.
yeah, the wisteria was out. It looked
Yeah.
absolutely... Oh, yeah, and the week before, and sorry about the weather.
Yeah, but we have that in every garden. But the one that I remember being slightly disappointing was going to Rosemary Veary's garden at Barnsley in Gloucestershire for the first, years and years ago, and there was a very sort of iconic photograph of the Laburnum walk there, with the alliums underneath it. So the yellow flowers hanging down, the alliums underneath it, and I somehow got it into my head that this was like a really long thing that went off for ages. And I got there and I thought, hang on, it's only about 20, 30 yards long, so it's actually much shorter than I expected to. So although it was, it wasn't actually that spectacular because I saw it when it wasn't flowering. But my imagination said I remember those yellow flowers and the alliums and all those.
You
kind
build
of things.
up, yes.
You build it up.
Yes, you
and
build it
expect
up.
it to be much bigger and grander than it is, and that's obviously what. Where there can be a problem or where there can be trouble, which you didn't get at which one?
No,
was it?
Rion-G. It's called
Rion-G,
Rion-G, in Kyoto.
It must be about the most famous garden in the world, isn't it? Really?
Well, most famous Japanese garden in the world, I guess. But a lot of people come to the UK, right? Our garden tour. But do you agree with me that it puts it defines a trip? A week. We went to Canada. British Columbia together, and we saw a lot of gardens, and we did garden talks. And if anyone wants us to go anywhere and do more garden talks,
we'd be very happy.
We'd be very happy to do that, wouldn't we, James? And we had a really great time seeing lots of people. It was the equivalent of the National Garden Scheme, wasn't it?
That was pretty much everybody on Victoria Island. Not everybody, a lot of people on Victoria Island had opened their gardens, and we saw.
Yeah.
It was a day when everybody went round the gardens.
That was garden visiting day. It was like open house day.
Yeah, it was great. We had a nice time,
and it was a really great way of seeing lots of gardens. And they had a lot of deer damage. I remember there was deer jumping all over the place
massive
in the middle of the
fences.
day. Yeah,
fences to keep the deer out. You think, oh gosh, we've got problems with slugs, and they've got a deer that comes along.
I've just also got to mention the national, because with National Garden Scheme we just quickly mentioned.
Yeah.
But they have a new press, because obviously I handed over. No one remembers me. That's the thing, because I handed over to Mary Berry, right?
You did.
Yeah. And what is Mary Berry famous for?
Cakes.
Exactly, James.
Yes.
You like the way I segued that one in there.
You just moved that one straight into that, didn't you? Into the cake thing.
And Mary Berry has now passed on the mantle to
Alan Titchmarsh.
Yeah. And when is Alan going to be? When is he going to be? He's what is he, CBE now?
He's a CBE. Yeah,
well, when is he going to be Lord Alan? Lord Alan of Titchmarsh.
Lord Alan of he could actually be of Titchmarsh, because there is a town or a village in Northamptonshire that I drive through occasionally and think, it's Titchmarsh. So he could be Lord Alan of Titchmarsh, or Lord Titchmarsh of Titchmarsh is what he would be.
But anyway, he's now the president of the National Garden Scheme. So it's gone from me to Mary Berry to Alan Titchmarsh. It's gone downhill. I think it's gone downhill a bit
as well. Didn't Rachel?
I think she might have been president before me.
Yeah.
So it's really gone downhill.
Yeah.
So now it's Lord Titchmarsh.
Slips completely.
But people come to the UK,
yeah,
and we are famous for our gardens and our cake and our tea, and you can go from Great Dixter to Sissinghurst. You can do the whole route, and it's a wonderful thing. I think it's a really lovely way of focusing a trip. Otherwise, what you go and see this, and you see a bit of that, and you go to there, but actually having a garden trail.
I think wherever you go in the country, there will be a garden within that sort of space. And if I'm going to a new place, think, okay, where's there a garden that I can go and visit? So you've got National Trust gardens, you've got the NGS gardens, which are a little bit more difficult to find if you're a sort of first-time visitor. But it's definitely worth looking at and seeing, because there are extraordinary gardens everywhere. Some of them are the really famous ones, like you sort of mentioned, Dixter's and the I can't remember a single one now. Every single name. And but we've done those, Joe. I'm trying to think of another one. Anyway, there's all the National Trust ones that are all over the place, and yes, lots and lots of gardens. So if you were going to have somebody from another country coming to this country, can we think of 3 really good gardens that we would say that they should go and see? I got one.
You got one.
I've got one. I've got one at the moment. My first one. I mean, I'm looking for gardens that are slightly more obscure, maybe not the really big draws. In fact, I can think of two. Can I have two? And you can have two.
Well, you
How
can
about
have
that?
three if you want. I'm just trying to think of one
Trying
to
to think
start
one.
with.
I mean, there's the iconic garden that we've been to together, which is Rousham.
Yes.
Which is around the corner
Yeah.
from me now, which is William Kent,
Yeah.
18th century classicism, one of those gardens. It's a designer's garden. I think if you got a whole load of garden designers and asked them what their favourite garden was, a lot of them would say Rousham because of
A
the
lot
way
of them
that,
do. All the posh ones do.
Yeah, all the smart ones.
All the
say-
double barrel ones. Say Rousham.
Say Rousham.
Because there's all this narrative behind it, isn't there, as
Yeah.
well, that you had to explain to me.
classical imagery.
There's all this classical imagery and the classical narrative. I think it's a beautiful garden, but I think if you understand that level of it a bit more, which
It's an intellectual garden. The other thing,
Yes,
the
exactly.
thing that you will not get in that garden, which you will in pretty much every other garden, is you will not get any cake because they don't do catering, they don't do cake, and they don't do children, which is quite
Okay,
interesting.
okay.
So it hasn't sort of become a place where you take your kids to go and run around the place.
Yeah.
It's a place where you go and you walk and you appreciate the garden and you can
Yeah.
sort of sit there and have a picnic on your own. And it is. There's some really lovely bits. There's a rill that comes down the hill. Do you remember? Actually, I think. Yes, it was with you. Do you remember we raced ducks in it? We put rubber ducks in the rill at Rousham. I had a race down that. I mean, quite what came up. Quite why we had rubber ducks in our hands anyway.
I think
But basic-
Cleve was involved. Cleve West.
Cleve West would have been involved.
Yeah,
in
he
that.
had the ducks. It was nothing to do with us. It was all down to Cleve West. He's just trying to get us in trouble.
But we raced rubber ducks down the rill at Rousham, which was.
Well, they
was
can't
interesting.
kick us out now, can
Well,
they?
it's too late now, really, isn't it? But they
Okay,
also-
well, I'm going to go for a garden.
Okay,
Let's do it
you
like
can
this. We
have- you
take
have
it in
another
turns.
one.
We
I
take it in
like
turns. You've got to go Great Dixter. You have to go Great Dixter. And I
Great
know it's
Dixter.
not a little one down the little lane that no one's heard of. It's obviously one of the most iconic, famous gardens. But
Internationally famous.
because it just feels so alive, that place. And they have gardeners now still working there. Fergus is there. They change things every year. It's just constantly evolving, constantly moving. I haven't been for a while. I've got to say a few years I need to go there, but even throughout the year it changes so much as well. It's absolutely fabulous place. Some gardens are set in aspic, aren't they? They are, this is how it was 100 years ago, this is how it is now, whereas that place, you don't quite know what's going to come next.
It's always been like that. When Christopher Lloyd was there, he kept sort of changing things and moving things around, and Fergus has done it even more. And what that is a really good example of high maintenance gardening, because there's enough people, which means that they've got the time and the labour to change whole planting schemes over and around. But the other thing that they're doing there is they're sort of encouraging of biodiversity, and the fact that they have discovered, and Fergus particularly champions it, is the fact that a lot of this country is countryside, but awful lot of this country is also gardens, and about the value of gardens to the biodiversity of the country.
Yeah.
They're doing that there,
Yeah.
and they do have cake.
Well, okay, so we're going to rattle on because Louis given us the old wind-up sign. So we're going to rattle through. I'm going to mention Tree Bar. Because Tree Bar in Cornwall, there's great gardens in Cornwall, fantastic.
We've been there together as well.
We've been there together. There's this long walk, there's the hydrangea walk, there's the massive gunner and all that. But even better than that, when you get to the end, as long as you don't turn up too late in the day, because obviously, no, James, there are not pandas sleeping there, but there's a little private beach with ice cream. Yes.
There is down the
And
bottom.
I
there
filmed
is.
there, and by the time we got there, I was promised an ice cream all day. By the time we got there, the ice cream guy had gone. Yeah.
Oh.
Not that I'm bitter about it. I'm
That's-
over it. I am so over it.
That's the BBC for you, all the way.
Yeah, so no cake, but there's a private beach with an ice cream right down the bottom. So that's a great garden.
So get there early and go there. I'm going to do one more. Shall I stay in Cornwall? I mean, it's quite. Yeah, we'll stay in Cornwall. And
we got to build our followers up north.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of an up north one. Oh, Alnwick Castle.
Alnwick
That's quite
Castle's
fun.
good.
I haven't been
Yeah.
there for a while either,
Yeah, it's
but
good.
that's actually a nice garden. That's
It's
the
more than just a
Veitches.
water feature.
No, much more than just a water feature. I did a film for Gardeners World there years ago, because what they'd done is that they just planted a sort of a big plantation of Prunus taihaku. which is the great white cherry, which brings us very neatly back to Japan.
Lovely,
interestingly.
James.
So the Prunus taihaku, which was extinct in Japan.
Yeah.
I think it's called Cherry Ingram, who sort of found it and discovered that it was here, and so we propagated it in Britain and sent it back to Japan again because it had sort of run. It had they
That's right.
basically died out.
It died
there,
out.
So,
Yeah,
so we
we-
replaced it. So they planted a grove of Prunus taihaku, and I went there. And for some weird reason, I went all the way from when we were living in Northamptonshire to Northumberland and back again in a day and filmed a film in the middle of it. I can't know why I didn't spend the night. I've no idea. But it was a beautiful day. It was sunny, and there is a big, enormous water feature, and there's a poison garden, and there's the world's biggest tree house. All of these sort of quite cool things. And it's where they filmed Harry Potter, or some part of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But in the middle of it was this sort of grove of Prunus taihaku with these extraordinary white flowers with the little strawberry jam centre to each flower.
Wow, beautiful.
Really big, wide
And these are the
spreading
things
trees.
that you remember. See, these are the things that one remembers. We haven't got time to get onto our third, which is just as well.
Well, we can do another one. We can do it again.
We'll do
We're
a
here-
sequel.
we're here forever.
Another sequel.
It doesn't go anywhere, but this is the stuff from which memories are made.
It really is. Honestly, traveling with a gardening sort of, narrative, I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
What we're doing this summer is we're going to Sweden and Copenhagen on a train, and we're going to the Botanic Gardens in Gothenburg. So I will report back on them.
I want to
at
come
the end
with
of the
you. You
season.
haven't invited me.
No, because you're in France and doing something hot and interesting. We're going to do some questions now because what we love from our listeners is
Questions.
but questions that are.
Not dull and not about dead plants.
Let's see what Louis has for
And
us.
if we read them out, they will win a still unnamed gnome. Unnamed
The gnomeless gnome.
The gnomeless gnome. So we need names for the gnome,
Yep.
don't we?
We definitely do.
Okay.
So let's see what Louis has for us this week. Okay, we got questions now. Okay.
Anyway, we can fix our own
So
gnome.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions. Pick a number between 1 and 5.
3.
3. Question number 3 comes from Electra.
Electra. Someone
Good
called
name.
Electra. That's a
Morning
good name.
becomes Electra. Is that Eugene O'Neill? I can't remember. Which gardening job do you know you are distinctly pants at and avoid doing? What gardening job would you just rather somebody else did for you, or you would avoid it because it's, exhausting or grubby? Or
Hang on, you're trying to extend the question. You can't take a question and then make up another question off the back of
I'm
it.
extending
That's
the
not how it
question.
works. Electra knows exactly. It's short and sweet.
Which gardening job do you know you are distinctly pants at and avoid doing? I mean, I would actually question Electra's English grammar on that, but never fear.
Pants is a good word, though.
Pants is a good word. What are you
okay.
pants at, Joe?
Well, obviously, I don't have any weaknesses in my armoury.
This is the problem with
Okay,
this
I would
question.
say what I'm really looking forward to and what I will find out if I'm pants at. Oh, by the way, a few weeks ago we talked about plants that we've never been able to grow, and I said echinacea. When we had the whole echinacea thing, my echinaceas are doing really well. I've probably put the kibosh on it now, but I've actually got
Because
these
it's
long
had a
stalks.
dry summer.
Dry, but it
Dry
rains
spring.
every now and then. They've really, and I've kept them a bit weed free, and I've got put a bit of mulch and stuff, and I'm doing all right with those. So I might not be pants at growing echinacea.
That's something. But what are you pants at?
Well-
It doesn't have to be what you're a plant. It could be a task.
I think growing from seed is where I'm going next with my garden next year, because I've got this little greenhouse, and I don't normally, I'm more sort of landscaping and planting with plants that I'm buying in and all that, but I want to start growing from seed. So I obviously won't be pants at it, but I might find out
You're
I'm not as good as I
answering
think.
The question. You're telling us what you're going to be doing and what you're going to be good at. What Electra's point is what are you bad at? What are you pants at?
The whole point of these questions, we agreed, is that you don't actually have to answer them. So I'm going to throw that over to you, James. What are you pants at?
Or what do I avoid doing? What do
What
I
do you
really
avoid
not
doing?
like doing? I quite like doing the really boring things. I like
No,
reading. It
no,
enjoys
you're
me.
not answering the question.
No, I'm not answering the question. What do I really dislike doing?
Putting your tools away.
I'm not
Cleaning
good at putting
the
my
tools.
tools away or cleaning my tools. That's true. We've established that one already.
Yeah, you never put your tools away.
My tools are always hanging out. I can't think of anything. I think that the problem that we have here is that we're not pants at
Okay.
anything.
Oh, I know. I've thought of something.
Yeah.
I'm not pants at it, but I don't. So when you've pruned something, and you got all the arisings.
Yes.
I call them arisings, and if you in the old days when you put arisings on a quote, a gardening quote, you say remove the arisings, for 25 quid or whatever.
Yeah.
Always you get the client going, what's arising?
What's arising?
And is it a specially gardening term, an arising?
I think it's probably a building term. It's a thing that is deliberately obscure. But you're absolutely right. This is the thing I would like to avoid doing.
Yeah, that's avoid doing. I'm not pants at it. I mean, no one's pants at picking up arisings. But when I'm gardening professionally, I guess someone else going behind me and doing all of that.
What it is if you cut a bush down,
yeah,
when it's on the ground,
yeah,
there's an awful lot more of it than there was when it was standing
Exactly.
upright. And you think, oh my God, it takes 10 minutes to cut down a tree, and then takes 3 days to get rid of the stuff.
Especially going through the house as well.
Yeah, you've got to put it in bags, get it through the house, put the dust sheets down, all of that kind of stuff.
That's why I bought a chipper. So I've got quite a powerful chipper, but now I'm bored of feeding the chipper.
Yeah, I've met your chipper, but yeah, it is. I have a smaller chipper that I overfed my chipper.
Oh,
I put in something that was too big, I think. 2 years ago.
Oh, and that was it,
sits
was it?
in the shed, and it's
Rusty.
just basically choking on a branch that I can't get out and I can't get it through.
time for a very quick one. Come on, we've
Another
only got
question.
time. Louis giving us the eyeball.
Okay, you can do it. You can.
Oh, that means I've got to put my
between 1
glasses
and
on. It's not
5.
quick.
I'm going to go for question number 5.
Question number 5. I love irises. Is it irises or irie?
Irises.
I think it's irie. I love irises. I do too. And the highlights of my gardening year are when they bloom. I'm wondering if you could recommend any purple or white reblooming irises that I can add to my collection so I can enjoy their presence in my garden for longer. I don't think any iris rebloom.
There is one, but I can't remember what it's called.
I mean, if you deadhead them, they don't come back.
No, they won't come back.
No, they are short-lived. I mean, that's the thing, that they've got good foliage. They're quite short-lived.
There's one that flowers later. There's one that flowers in July, but I can't remember what it is, because that's the sort of question you would ask gardeners. Question time.
And this is from
not
Helen,
us.
by the way. This is Helen asked this question, and they have to be purple or white, reblooming irises. So just add more irises, I would say.
Enjoy the moment. This is one of those things.
That's the thing. They're many plants are fleeting, and you've just got to enjoy them when they're in flower. They won't last a long time. That's it. Enjoy that moment.
The thing that I think about irises, Celestia, my wife, is quite obsessed with irises. And it's the moment when you come back from Chelsea Flower Show, end of May, the irises are flowering.
Yeah.
And they're doing their thing. And we've spent quite a lot of time trying to chase down the Benton End irises, of which were lost and have been rediscovered. And
I've got one.
Which one have you got?
Well, I've got quite a few, but only one is in flower, so it's the only one that I know. It's something caramel. It's called. It's a beautiful
yes,
colour.
it's called. Oh gosh, I can't remember. Something caramel. We've got one called Deirdre. There's one called
Deirdre.
Nigel. Deirdre. My mother-in-law's name is Deirdre.
Oh, okay. So you got it from Deirdre.
So
a Benton iris.
It's a Benton iris called Deirdre.
So I thought I'll bulk up my. I thought, well, I've got one. I've probably got a few. I'm going to wait for them all to flower to work out exactly what they are. And then I thought, well, I'll bulk up me caramel, whatever it's called. And then I looked online.
Yeah.
30 quid.
Yeah.
A certain plant supplier is 30 quid for a 2-litre iris.
Yeah, I mean, they're expensive, but
That
what
is-
you do... But irises are easy. I know this is a big
I know.
gardener's world.
Yeah, I know, but I got to wait. I just thought, well, I'd like to buy 10 of them, but I'm not spending 300 quid on 10 iris. I'm sorry, I am just not.
No, you're not. I think that's probably sensible because they do bulk up quite quickly. I've got some really nice white ones that you can have.
I've got the ones in France that you gave me. You gave me a load of the white ones, the short one.
These are taller ones. I'll give you a taller one to go with the short one. You can have a daddy iris and a mummy iris and a baby iris. We've got the whole lot.
I'll have anything. I'll have anything for if you handing them out.
I mean, that's a bit horticultural, that question, but I think
Yeah, a bit horticultural for a gardening podcast.
But I think it's still worth a know. Okay, next question.
Okay, I got one here. Andy.
Handy.
Well, he is handy. He's very handy, but he's got a real dilemma.
Okay.
Like it, short and sweet. This wheelbarrows, 1 wheel or 2.
One. I mean, a 2-wheel wheelbarrow takes up too much space apart from anything else. A 2-wheel wheelbarrow is a cart.
But people do have those. There are some. I was in a garden the other day. It had a really massive barrow, and I did think, wow, I could get 2 or 3. It's obviously for light mulches and light stuff, because if you fill that up with sort of sand or heavy soil or something, it's too heavy to shift. And I'll tell you what, another thing I'm not into: wheelbarrows with a ball wheel. Do they still do those?
That was invented by James Dyson.
What, you're joking?
Yeah, no, before he did the
What,
Hoover,
before he left the country?
before he left the country, before he did the Hoover and the hand dryer and all that kind of stuff, he invented the ball barrow.
Did he?
Yeah.
Because they always went flat. That ball always went a bit flat. And the idea is that you can go round a corner. What's wrong with I always go pneumatic. I go the Builders Merchants.
That's the best place.
Builders Merchants to get a wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
Pneumatic tyre, not a solid tyre. It's got to be a tyre that gets inflated. What the best thing for a wheelbarrow is, you get the right one, is to recline in them in your lunch break.
Yep.
So you empty out. You put your
tip it
legs
down.
up. You put your legs up on the handles like that.
Yeah.
Like that, and you recline back, and you're there.
No, but what happens is that when you do that, the handles go into the ground, and it becomes much better. So the wheel goes up in the air.
No.
And then it makes an armchair.
No.
Because I tell you, there's a really, really lovely photograph that we will try and find and put on our social media feed somewhere, of the woman whose name I've forgotten. I've got a lot of stories where the details are slightly fuzzy.
I'm impressed that you remember the stories,
But
James.
she built at the Minack Theatre. Have you been to the Theatre?
I know the
Cornwall,
Minack Theatre,
which is basically on a cliff and make you feel really, really ill. It's got. Do you know what those really steep angled? If you go to a theatre and you've got the ones at the top, the top of the theatre,
the gods,
where they're really steep, which are also called the vomitoriums.
Oh, really?
Where you come out and they have them in football grounds as
yes,
well.
Yes, I went to Stade de Paris when Arsenal didn't win the Champions League years ago, and I was right up at the back, and honestly, it was quite an experience. I didn't like it.
The vomitories, because you feel
I was in the vomitories.
Whatever. Anyway, that's the Minack Theatre. That's not really very vomity, but it's this theatre in Cornwall overlooking the sea, and they have plays on there.
My dad was asked to perform there, but because my dad suffered from agoraphobia and vertigo, he couldn't do it. He was asked to put
because
on
you've
a play
got too
there.
much out there and too much whatever.
Yeah.
Think we should tell them who your dad is?
No, I know who my dad is.
I know you know who your dad is, but the viewers, the people who are listening to us might not know.
Well, my dad's an actor called Clive Swift. So, and he was he was a founder member of the Royal Shakespeare Company, but will always be remembered for being Richard Bucket in Keeping Up Appearances. And people now say to me, "Oh, is that your brother? Was that your brother in Keeping Up Appearances?" It's like, brother? I mean, he was in his 50s when he made all of that.
He was
stuff.
younger
But
than
he
you
was a
are
proper
now when he
actor.
did it. Yeah, he's a really. I saw something with him in it the other day. It was a weird 1970s television program called Oh Brother, and he was in one episode of it.
Possibly.
I don't quite know why I'm talking about that. So anyway, where did we start on this? Oh, wheelbarrows. Oh yes, the woman who built the Minack Theatre. There's a really famous and lovely picture of her sitting in a wheelbarrow.
Okay.
Reading a book.
Well, we'll have to find that. We'll have to source that.
We'll have to find
anyway, so it's one wheel
Here,
or
my
two.
turn. My turn.
No, I'm reading another one.
No, okay,
no. I read better than you. How big does my garden have to be to justify a sit-on lawnmower?
Oh,
it's quite a good one.
It is
I
quite
have
a good
got
one.
a sit-on lawnmower. In fact, just yesterday I was driving my granddaughter around in it, and she absolutely loved it.
Was she on the tractor with you, or was she,
She was
in a
sitting
truck?
she was sitting on my lap.
You
She was
need to
sitting
get
on
a
my lap.
cart for her.
No, there is a cart at the back, but she wouldn't like that. She'd be a bit freaked out by that, actually.
Okay.
She likes sitting on Grandpa's knee, driving the tractor, driving
nice.
driving
That's
the mower.
lovely.
But anyway,
So how big does it need to
my
be?
gardens depends how much percentage of lawn
You want to have.
want.
For which I refer you back to a previous podcast where we spoke a lot about lawns, and if you haven't listened to that, then you should go back and listen to it now.
Exactly.
But I think that the answer is...
This is Chris, by the way. Is Chris going to get a gnome before you want to answer it?
It's a bit of a limp question, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how big is his garden. We don't know how big his garden is. If he's
That's a good point. Chris, you don't tell us how big your garden. How big does my garden have to be? Oh, I see. He's asking.
He's asking us.
the question, James.
He's asking us for.
He's asking us for the answer.
To give him permission to go and buy a sit-on mower because he doesn't want to walk up and down. I mean, walking up and down, following a mower.
He just wants to buy a sit-on mower.
That's it, exactly. He wants us to. What's going to happen is he's going to go to his partner
and say
James and Joe say I need a sit-on mower.
Yeah. Well, I think you should just buy yourself one, Chris. Yeah. So you're now going to get a gnome. You could probably put it on eBay and raise the funds to buy yourself a sit-on mower.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
I think don't run anybody over.
Yeah. Okay.
And now I've got to do the last question. You've just looked at it. You cheat.
No, it's two. It's question 2, I think.
Vanessa. Do you know my chickens are all called Vanessa? I've got 4 chickens. They're all called Vanessa. It makes life much easier.
Yeah, I can see that.
It does.
Well, maybe this is from one of your chickens.
It was my sort of nephew my Celestia's cousin's son, when he was small, he said, "Would you like to name the chickens?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "What's that one called?" And he said, "Vanessa." And what about that one? Vanessa. And that one, Vanessa. So this is every generation of chicken in our house is all called Vanessa.
I can say it keeps it simple.
This isn't one of them. This is Vanessa, who's a gardening person. Mm-hmm. And she says, "I think your gnomes would really complement my garden."
Hang on,
she's trying to get a name out of us.
She's trying to go.
There is a question as well.
It's too direct for the gnomes.
But what I want to know.
Oh yeah.
What is the silliest garden statue you have seen? Okay, that's quite a good question because I've got a really good answer to this one.
Oh, good, because I haven't got an answer at all. Brilliant.
Okay.
Go for it.
For about 10 years, I helped judge the garden show in Moscow. And part of that, we had gardens and we had sort of, floral exhibits and quite crazy Russian things went on as well. But one of the things was a garden sculpture stand. And on that garden sculpture stand were 2 things that will forever live on in my memory. And one of them was a truncated zombie, which you put in your garden. So it's basically, it was from the head to the waist. It was as if someone had come along with a large axe and cut this person in half.
Right.
And it was on a sort of stand, and it had an electric motor, and it would jiggle like this. So
how big was this thing?
It was life-size.
No way.
This is a life-size person, but cut in half and with a zombie face on and a sort of ragged shirt.
That should be in Covent Garden, not in a garden.
I suppose it is a garden. It was quite a weird thing. And then the other thing that was in there was a life-size replica of Michael Jackson. And these were on sale as garden sculptures. So I think that answers the question about the silliest garden statue that I have seen. And because I got a chance to tell you that, I think Vanessa gets a gnome.
Vanessa definitely gets it. I can't beat that in any shape or form. So
well, there you go. That's the
Vanessa the chicken gets
She's not
chicken number 6.
She's not a chicken, nor did she get any chickens.
Yeah, if anyone's got any weird garden sculptures or features, send them in. We'll have a look at them, won't we?
They're going to be embarrassed to send in something weirder than half a zombie.
Oh, we've got some quite interesting listeners. I've got to say, James, don't put anything past them.
If you send a photograph to gardening@scribehound.com, which is the magic address where everything happens. If you send us questions to gardening@scribehound.com, if you send us random compliments to gardening@scribehound.com. You
want a bit of cake? You can send cakes.
If you send us cake or biscuits or chocolates to gardening@scribe, you can't actually send cake through an email, can you? But if you
cake voucher,
a cake voucher. Anything like that, send it all to gardening@scribehound.com, and we will do our very best to answer any questions that you may send to us. But in the meantime, and until next week, what do these people who maybe have found this podcast for the first time, what do they need to do? They've just listened to it. I need more of that. They need to
subscribe.
And how do they do that?
Well, they go to scribehound.com and they subscribe, and they don't just get us. No, I've said something wrong there, and you're looking at me funny. Like you're talking about the feed, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, don't ask me a question then. I'll ask you a question. So
hang on. I just asked you a bloody question.
If people have been listening to this wonderful podcast or have heard about us and haven't listened to us yet, how do they actually listen to a podcast and get it every week, James?
Well, they need to click on the link, which is in our show notes. So if you go to episode in wherever you get your podcast from, you need to go to your local podcast shop.
Okay.
Which could be Apple, could be Acast, could be Scribe, could be, what's the other one called? Spotify. Could be any of those sort of things, and subscribe to us, because you know something? They don't want to miss a single word of this. This is liquid gold.